Welcome everyone, thanks for coming to our session on customer service analytics. And I never know how to start these things, so I was kind of thinking to myself, what would be a good opening line? And I always hear people ask you, like, how was your conference so far? And then I realized this is literally the first session after the keynote, so I can't use that line, so I'm just gonna scratch that. But to kick us off here, just do a quick introduction. So I'm Greg, this is Sid. We work in the customer service analytics organization at Verizon. And a little bit of background about me, I lead the advanced analytics team for Verizon. I've spent 6 years as a data scientist, so really my background is in predictive modeling, or as people like to call it nowadays, machine learning. I worked in the insurance, media, and CPG industry, and I have an academic background in physics and math. Hobbies outside of work, I love traveling. I love playing fetch with my dog Daisy, who's actually really bad at fetch. And I enjoy tennis, bowling, ping pong, all the obscure sports.
Hey everyone, it's great to be back here to speak again at the Tableau conference. And this year I'm hearing it's more than 18,000 attendees in Vegas, so that's pretty wild. I'm Sid Dayama, and I lead the data visualization team in customer service analytics in Verizon. Before that, I was a first-year employee at a startup which grew and merged to form WTA Networks. I led finance and analytics at the startup, and it is then when I truly understood the power of big data. So we used a whole lot of data analytics strategies to hack growth, as they say in the startup world, which is essentially acquire users and increase engagement on the apps that we build. So since then, I have decided to develop myself in data science and analytics, and Tableau has been a loyal friend in that sense. My academic background is in finance, and I've worked at a couple of hedge funds before too. With respect to hobbies, I have recently started to learn to fly, and I am steadfastly working towards getting my private pilot license, so fingers crossed. I'm pretty good at playing pool, and I'm pretty good at playing the sarod, which is a 25-string classical instrument. Kind of obscure choice to play an instrument, right? So people are like, what the hell is a sarod? Well, you'll have to Google it. Not now, though. So Greg, what are we going to talk about today? Enlighten us.
All right, and he's being modest. I've played him in pool. He's pretty good. To go over the agenda for today, we're going to start with some high-level stuff, not as sexy as the visualizations, but we're going to give you an overview of who Verizon is, what our organization does, who we are, how we've set ourselves up for success. We're going to talk about a 5G use case, and we're going to talk a lot about speech analytics, which is really the heart, in my opinion, of customer service and how we analyze customer contacts into the business. We're then going to have a second part of the session, which is really our newest and most innovative visualizations, which is we're going to have a strategic visualization, a tactical, and then, not even joking, a project that Sid refused to tell me about till about 4 days ago called Project Omicron, which he's going to share with you all today, which is more of like an innovative project where we're trying to push the envelope. So who is Verizon? We're going to go over just quickly Verizon Wireless and who we are. We are America's most reliable network, as you can see with all that beautiful red coverage, covering over 98% of the US population. In addition to Verizon Wireless, on the Northeast, we do have cable service, so TV and internet. And we also are moving into the space, and you've obviously seen this in the news, to 5G, which is two-pronged. There's 5G home, which is also internet service in your house, but there's also 5G mobility. You'll start seeing 5G mobile phones come out, which will allow you to access the 5G network for faster speeds. So I'll pass it to Sid.
So with 118 million customers to serve, that translates to huge amounts of data. So when we say big data in Verizon, we really mean it. And to give you a sense, we have about 100 server nodes with 20 plus petabytes of data warehouse capacity. Every single day, more than 5 terabytes of data gets added to our data warehouses. And in a second, I'll talk about from where does this data get generated in the business. More than 2+ petabytes of data is extracted by different analytics and data science teams across the organization to deliver insights. And specifically, from a Tableau perspective, we have a 40 TB on-premise Tableau server on which at any given point of time, we have about 500 GBs of data extracts. So what I want to emphasize on this slide is we at Verizon are huge custodians of big data. And with that, it's a great place to develop a career in data science and analytics. So how does all this data flow? So data gets generated from our digital channels, so all our websites, mobile apps, a whole lot of product engagement. So on the wireline side, we have the home broadband, the Fios TV, our wireless network. Data gets generated from the IoT offerings. And then a lot of data gets generated from the call centers, which is going to be our core focus for the talk today. People call in for sales, service, and tech support. And then on the Fios side, data also gets generated a lot from the dispatch center. So there's actually technician dispatches that go to customers' households to install new services or to maintain the existing services. So all of this data that gets generated is tagged and ingested and transformed, and then it's stored in our warehouses, and then it's a whole lot of querying and analysis done. And this is the quintessential tech stack slide, right? I'm not going to go through each of the tools here, but what I want to emphasize is basically two things. One, Greg has really inculcated a culture of bring your own tool, and there's tremendous flexibility with respect to that. Another thing that makes it pretty enticing to be working for such a team and building a career in analytics and data science. And number two, in the visualization and reporting layer, Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server are our primary visualization tools through which we distribute insights across the organization to different operations managers and business transformation teams and product managers, marketing managers, even software engineers, and the top-line executives who set the direction of the business. So our dashboards are used by stakeholders on the front lines of the business and also the executive leadership. Now, to give you like a sense of our Tableau implementation, this slide just caters to one Tableau server site. So in customer service operations, we have the contact analytics team. And we have a dedicated server site for the contact analytics team. And for this one site only, we have about 710 dashboard tabs catering to more than 4,800 users. And that has generated more than 215,000 views. For folks who are confused, this is not our YouTube channel. This is one single Tableau server site. So that's the kind of viewership we get from one site, And when you look at the demand side, right, so we have more than 4,800 users demanding insights and analytics. But on the supply side, we have 16 publishers. So if you look at the publisher to the number of users they're catering to, that kind of a ratio, it's like one publisher is to 300 stakeholders. So we are a lean team, but a high-impact team. And the way we are able to manage that is through continuously trying to provide a best-in-class user experience. We think a lot about creating a highly engaging and a sticky environment so that we can cater the best way possible with respect to delivering insights to stakeholders across the business. And to just give you an example, right, this second number that I am super proud of is our average load time in seconds. So we are at 4.18 seconds compared to an industry average of about 7 to 8 seconds for loading the dashboards. And for all of this, I mean, really a big kudos to our Tableau site admin, Jason Dawson. Jason is here with us today, everyone. And so I'd like to give a round of applause. And just to give an example how he thinks, right? So Jason's built a scoring system for setting up the priorities for data extracts. And he factors in how big are the extracts, right? How long they take to refresh, how many dashboards does it cater to, and how many viewers or how many users are using that dashboard and when. So there's a whole lot of parameters coming together, and he's built a priority system, a scoring system, just to give you an example of how we think about building a best-in-class experience there. At any given point of time, so across the Verizon consumer group, we looked at 500 GBs of extracts. Our team, for one site only, has about 45 GBs of data extracts on the Tableau server.
All right. So I want to give you some background on what types of problems we're trying to solve every single day. So the core of what we do is understanding call volume and chat volume, so all contacts that come into Verizon. So this is about how many calls and chats actually come into Verizon, how many of those calls and chats we can handle, how many we transfer, and also call-in rates. And when we say call-in rate, and you'll hear that a few times today, it's really taking an event that happens to a customer. Let's just say you bought the newest and greatest iPhone 11, and we measure how many calls you place within the next, hours, days, weeks, months, years, just to try and get a gauge on how often you have to contact us, and then diving into why. Because we know everyone wants to self-serve, right? You don't want to have to pick up the phone and contact a company when it's something you could do yourself. We also care about how long the calls are. This is a big metric for many reasons. One, we know you have busy schedules and you don't want to sit on the phone with Verizon. That's not how you planned your day. And also, the longer we're on the phone with you, there are customers waiting to get through, and we need to get to them as well. So it's really about solving problems efficiently and effectively at the same time. Which gets to the next point. A big measure we care about is repeat calls. So just imagine you have to call a company, and then the next day you have to call them again because something happened. There's a broken process, or you weren't told the right thing, or there's some miscommunication. It's critical that when you call us once. Because if you have to call us multiple times, we know it's a failure on our part, and we really want to do everything we can to understand why that's happening. And just to show on the slide how serious we take this measure, we do 2 hours, 24 hours, 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 60 days. We have it all, because every use case is different. We know that your billing calls might not come until 30 days after your purchase, so we want to care for that as well. And were customers satisfied with our service? This is two-pronged. It's not only were you satisfied with Verizon as a whole, but were you satisfied with your representative? This is critical for understanding if you're getting the service that we are promising you. So to talk about the organization that we sit in, so as Sid said, we sit in the reporting and analytics organization for Verizon Consumer. And my team specifically is customer service analytics. We like to call ourselves advanced analytics. And we are consisted of 3 teams. So the first team we call advanced analytics. These are the data engineers, right? People who are every day pulling the data together, writing complex SQL queries, joining large data sets into one data set so that data can be ingested into Tableau for analysis. They also do analysis in many other tools. I'm sure people still use Excel, Python, R, Tableau, Click, whatever tool. And like Sid mentioned, we are a bring your own tool kind of shop. If you come into Verizon with a Python background, we don't want to force you to use Tableau if you can output the same product in Python. The second team is speech analytics. Speech analytics is all about generating contact drivers. So taking the call, transcribing it to text, mining that text for what's happening on the calls, and then feeding that data into the data warehouse so we can actually join it to many other things and analyze the information. Dashboards and reporting, or data viz, run by Sid over here, is all about creating those really powerful dashboards and monitoring the site. We have a dashboard just for our website. That's how serious we take it, so we always know load times, users, and how those things are changing over time. A use case I really like for that is, let's just say you get a really high priority request and you complete it within 2 days. It should take 2 weeks. You send them the dashboard. Well, we're going to monitor who's using that right away. And if I see that it was accessed one time over the next 2 weeks, we know how to prioritize that person next time they come to they put in her request. And we don't have a team for data science. It is something we do when necessary. We don't force models or segmentation. But if a project comes up where it makes sense, we will perform that. We do have analysts who specialize in data science and using those techniques in Python and R. So to get into our first use case for the day, we want to talk about 5G. 5G is a very hot topic right now, probably something you've seen in the news, whether it was months ago or things are happening quickly. We're expanding 5G. You'll start to hear, you're going to hear about new cities that we're launching in. And why does 5G matter? So the same thing when 4G came out, we're promising faster speeds for everyone. Faster download speeds, download movies in seconds versus minutes, right? Low lag time, low latency. A big one that I care about is connecting more people in one place at the same time. So you're at a football game and you're wondering why you don't have service. That's a huge problem, and all telecom companies are well aware of that. So this is what we're trying to promise with 5G. So to get into our first dashboard, and I should have called out that these are built by Bree Stith, or as we like to call her, 5G Bree, sitting right there in the second row. Builds really good dashboards and has built our entire 5G reporting suite, and we're just going to show you a few examples of that. So this, I know, looks like a basic dashboard. There's some line charts, some bar charts, and some tables. But what's impressive about this is when 5G launched, 5G Home specifically, which is the internet in your house, our other product is Fios on the Northeast. They do the same thing. The executives wanted to see those things compared to each other so they could understand a baseline. Are we bad? Are we good? Where are we? Are things looking really out of whack? This allowed us to do that. And what I really love about this is that data sits in two completely different data warehouses, but they're brought into the same dashboard on the same chart, which I think is really awesome. We also have customers who like to measure, which we call 5G home and wireless. These are customers who had existing 4G wireless service. They've decided to go with Verizon as their 5G home provider. We also have 5G mobility. 5G mobility is your cell phone is 5G enabled, and you're in a 5G enabled area, and you're accessing that 5G network. So we measure all three different customer segments and their call-in rate. So remember, their call-in rate is measured actually two different ways. There's a traditional call-in rate, which measures how many calls come in a month divided by the customers who purchase that product in a month. We also have what we call a new device call-in rate. New device call-in rate says you purchased a device or a plan, and then how many calls did you make within X number of days after that? And that's what you're seeing here. The AHT is average handle time. That's how long the call is. This comprises the actual time that the reps are talking and the customers are talking, also the hold time. And on the bottom, I'm a fan of a combination of tables and graphs. I think different people like to consume different data in different ways, and I think this does a good job at highlighting both of those for people. An executive might want to come in here and see the actual, see the charts, whereas someone on the working team level might want to see the actual numbers that comprise the chart, or vice versa. Oh yeah, sure. It's encouraged, actually. Take as many pictures as you want. And this dashboard really just pushed the envelope for us because I love these use cases where you actually get it on the ground floor. When I joined Verizon, Fios was an established business, Verizon Wireless was an established business. To actually get to launch reporting for something that's from scratch, we know the problems that are happening to customers right away, and before this becomes nationwide, right, we know what's happening. We know the issues you're having. We're resolving those issues. We're feeding that back to the business. And it's really good to get it on the ground floor for that reason. So another example of a dashboard is, this is how we use speech analytics, just one example. This just gives you a very quick snapshot at the top of why are they calling? What are those key call drivers? An example could be how many people are calling about billing issues. On the bottom, we have subdrivers. So within billing, you have many different topics. An example could be you're confused about your bill. So you can then see the breakdown of what the subdrivers are there, and it gives you a quick snapshot of knowing what's happening in the business. So we're just aware if we see maybe troubleshooting calls jump up, we know there's a problem, we know we need to look into that and figure out why. And a really cool dashboard that was just built by Jason, which is brand new, it ties in, our vision for this one is letting our clients listen to the calls from the customers. We do a good job at getting these call drivers, right? We know if it's a billing call or more specifically what the subdriver is. But what really is neat is actually being able to hear the context. Sometimes to hear the customer's voice and their frustration changes the game a little bit, and you really get to understand where they're coming from. This dashboard allows you to choose from filters at the top and say, I want to see customers who just purchased an iPhone 11, maybe they had long handle time, maybe they were angry. Choose a bunch of filters, Then click your bubble, get right into the call listening, and then you can understand in that specific situation, what did the customer actually go through? So to talk about speech analytics and how large this is at Verizon, we transcribe over 2 million calls every single month, taking the voice, putting it to text. We have over 3,000 speech analytics users, clients just in the tool, deriving insight, using it to listen to calls, whatever is needed to improve the customer experience. And we have over 200 call driver categories. And we're not even close to done. Just to give you the idea of the complexity of what people call about, it's not always billing, right? It's not always to make a payment. There are a lot of things that happen, right, at a big business. Things go wrong. And it's our responsibility to create call drivers for those specific things so we know what's happening. Good example, if you're a Verizon Unlimited customer, you'll get Disney Plus for free starting on November 12th. It might be useful to have a Disney Plus call driver to understand, is that going well? What's going wrong with it? And how can we intervene and fix those problems? So I really like this one because I think it's important to highlight why speech analytics matters, right? Number one, you have to understand why your customers are contacting you. You need to know if things change, right? What's happening in the business as you launch products? How are those call drivers changing over time? A second thing is to root cause changes in performance. Let's just say call volume skyrockets for whatever reason. You need a way to gauge what that's about. Whether it gives you the final answer or not, it points you in a direction, and that's going to help you understand at a high level what happened. And then the third thing is just like we said before, listen to what the customer has to say. It's important to understand that the customer was confused about their bill and may be angry, but it's important to listen to the context to really understand fully what happened there. So to give you a quick understanding of the history of speech analytics and why we feel is so impressive, where the technology has gone, we're going to show you a little video that our team filmed, which highlights kind of the history of speech analytics and how this might have looked just maybe 5 to 10 years ago.
Hey Pam, I'm calling to tell you how much I love your company and I'd love to purchase some more products. Thanks so much. What would you like to purchase? I think I need a new phone. Sure, let me process that for you. Send you a receipt. Have a great day. Okay, thanks. You too.
So just highlighting that, you literally might have to listen to a call, write down a call driver, like Josh is doing here, and then transfer that piece of paper to another employee. And you can see Gavin here is going to have to type this into the system. So you can see, to me, it's so impressive where this has gone. I mean, to think that this is the way we used to do things, technology has really changed the game for us, right? We know every single day what our customers calling about, and it's really been a game changer for us. So before I hand this over to Sid to highlight some really cool use cases, just wanted you to take a second and look at this cartoon I saw on LinkedIn. This to me just highlights what our problem was. There are so many emails that I've gotten from my boss about, sorry Sheila, tell the right story, right? We send data and we have dashboards and our clients go into them, but it doesn't tell the full story. And that's where we've really gotten frustrated with ourselves and challenged ourselves to say, the information needs to be easy, consumable, and just tell the story in one snapshot. We don't want to send information and then the VP sends right back that they don't understand it. And it just doesn't answer the question. That hasn't been a good experience for us. So we've this year challenged ourselves to change the game and to take our call driver dashboard to the next level.
Okay, time to get into some advanced analytics use cases. And so quick show of hands, how many of you are actually actively involved in developing Tableau dashboards on a day-to-day basis? Nice, that's a lot of people. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be a lot of fun. So yes, I'm really excited to showcase some of our best projects this year. And we'll get into the nuances that are involved in building the views that we are about to see. So the first one is our call center executive summary dashboards. And to set the stage for that, just what Greg mentioned, we have a pretty interesting problem here at Verizon, where it's a pretty unique problem, quite the opposite to what most organizations have, a peculiar one. We have a problem of plenty. We have a problem of choice. So when a business stakeholder wants to analyze different call reasons or call drivers, they would get to our Tableau site and they would come to a landing page, which would look like this. So these are 65 views that are built specifically to analyze call drivers, right? And even when the stakeholder sort of navigates and finds the right dashboard to look at, when they get to the individual view, some of the individual views look like this, right? So you've got, and what's interesting is in all the dashboards that you'll see, we have, these are real dashboards people are using in the business every single day, but all numbers are either blurred or redacted and changed with hash signs. For this one, I did not have to do a thing. So you would, so essentially we look at a few hash words, if you will, but this one is an example of how a user would get to our site too. Again, we have certain visuals as well, but you get a sense that some of the views, although insightful, there's a whole lot of data going historical, like for a few years, although insightful, they're focused a lot on the metadata, right, rather than the synthesized insight. They're too granular. And an analogy, because I have a finance background, an analogy that I like to use, and any accounting or finance folks here would appreciate that, is a lot of the stakeholders are looking for a balance sheet of the business. Right? What does a balance sheet tell you? A balance sheet gives you the state of the business at a given snapshot of time. So as of December 31st, 2019, a balance sheet will tell you what are my assets, what are my liabilities, and how much equity do I own, right? What we're giving to those stakeholders is an accounting ledger. So the objective here was to not cannibalize on the 65 views that's already built, because people are using that, they're used to it, they're extracting information from that, but to complement and capitalize on, to build an executive summary, a balance sheet that will show you the state of the business at a given at a given point in time. So to do that, we have implemented a hub and spoke model where a whole lot of the good stuff that's already built stays where it is, and it is tethered as a satellite dashboard to the mothership balance sheet, the mothership executive summary. Would you guys like to see the mothership? Yeah? Okay, so remember the KPI slide Greg talked about. Primarily, we as an organization, contact analytics, are trying to answer 4 main questions, right? How many calls do we get? So you've got one section, one swim lane that starts with calls, right? Second one is how long are the calls? That's the average handle time is the KPI that we measure. That's the second swim lane. How many repeat calls do we get? That's a repeat percentage or a repeat rate that's there. And how satisfied are the customers? Right? That's our CES score, customer experience survey score, and we look at it in 2 ways, which I'll get into in a bit. But for all these 4 questions, there's a key component of why. Right? So the why piece is solved by the call reasons that you see here. So call reasons A, B, C until J will show you, okay, you've got the call swim lane, you see the volumes, and then you see the volumes segmented by call reason A, call reason B, call reason C, etc. Right? We talked about assets and liabilities, right? So for the given dates that I've plugged in, which call reasons are working for me, which are not working for me? So you see a month till date versus a prior month till date delta right there. So what it does is any end date that you've plugged in, the logic is built in a such way that, okay, if that's October 6th, it takes the October 1st to October 6th and compares it to September 1st to September 6th. So it's the same partial date of the current month versus the previous month. Right? So you see what's gone up, what's gone down in the same view. Now, the same thing is happening for AHT. You see the volumes, you see the monthly date, prior monthly dates, difference, the repeat percentage, and the CES score. So now, Greg talked about the difference between drivers and sub-drivers, right? So for example, our call reasons could be bill. A call subtopic could be somebody calling to view their bill, or somebody calling to dispute their bill, or they want to get to an auto pay, or they want to pay their bill off on the phone. So these are some of the granular subtopics that you can look at. But then you would have to go, in the current implementation, you would have to go to a different dashboard to look at those. So how do you incorporate granular views in the same dashboard so that the user does not have to leave the view that they are on and does not lose context? So to give you an example, now the user can just hover over, and we can use Verizon tooltips. So you can now see what what comprises in the call reason A. So you can see the subtopics 4, 6, 13, like in the horizontal bar graphs, right? So we look at when things go up and down. Now you can sort of look at, okay, I'm seeing call reason E has gone down. The AHT for call reason E has gone down month over month, but then I can look at the subtopics. So not everything's gone down. Some have gone up, some have gone down, but the overall effect is that the AHT for call reason E has gone down, right? So it's important to see the granular view right in the same view without losing context, right? One thing that we incorporated is you can see line graphs below. Now you're viewing the 4 key metrics of the business at a given snapshot in time, but then those line graphs also show you the historical trend, right, in the same view. Furthermore, you can adjust the granularity of those line graphs. So this is the calls, right? So that was a weekly view. When you get to a daily view, you literally start seeing the seasonalities of weekdays versus weekends, et cetera, right? Now, using parameters, we can swap these measures to incorporate different metrics. So you're looking at calls trended. I can switch that to another metric, which is, let's switch it to AHT. Let's look at how AHT performed over time, right? I can switch it to the repeat rates, how it's performed over time. So in the same dashboard, now I can view snapshots, I can view time trends, and I can swap measures. And then, the whole dashboard can now be segmented and filtered by different, segments or filters that you'd like the entire view to filter on. So I can click on the menu here. This is a 2019.3. The button functionality is pretty cool. So now I can segment all of this by different call types, right? Repeat. Greg talked about the repeat intervals. We get super granular: 2 hours, same day, 3 days, 7 day, 31 day. We look at the customer experience survey score with Wheezy satisfaction and rep satisfaction. So customer experience surveys with respect to, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your experience with the rep or the experience with the Verizon brand as well? So all of this information in one view. Now, how would I utilize the other satellite views, right? So if we see repeats, let's see, right? So, so you see that the call reason E repeat percentage has gone up on a month-over-month basis. I can now hover over it to see the subtopics in that, and now when I click on that, I get a link that says navigate to the dashboard that allows to listen to repeat calls. The cool thing is, whatever slicing and dicing you've done in the original view, those filters get passed in the URL parameters. So you get to the call listening dashboard that Greg talked about, but with the analysis you've done in this dashboard. And every single swim lane ties to different views. So if you could look at different type of, so the other column in repeats would get you something to identify habitual repeats. This can get you to listen to calls, etc. we have the second tab for this. So now that we've established the KPIs, now that we've looked at, okay, how these KPIs have performed at a given snapshot in time, now let's get further granular and try to establish relationships between the two, right? So the second tab is essentially our correlation grids. So if you see on the x-axis, so let me pick the top right one. The top right one, on the x-axis, you have the average handle time, which measures how long are the calls, right? On the y-axis, you've got the repeat percentage, right? So if you would want to look at certain call regions that are longer than average and have a higher repeat percentage than average, you can clearly look at through the scatter plot here, where the reference lines that you see essentially are the mean of the population, right? So this becomes really insightful when you get granular. Let me give you an example. Let's again click on the menu bar and change from our driver granularity to a sub-driver granularity. And now you can see we've got detailed call topics. Let's change it to sub-drivers, and we've got detailed call topics that you can now start establishing relationships. So you can see HT variance from the mean is 13.7. So this particular subtopic 87 is 13.7% longer than average, right? But it's 30.8% more repeats than average too. So this is something we need to take a look at. So directionally speaking, we need to figure this out. So calls are not only longer, people are calling again for this particular subdriver. Right? Let's look at another data point. The size of the circle is the call volume, by the way. So that gives you a sense of what's the sample size for this, right? So the other one, subtopic 118, not only the calls are 37.6% longer, it's got 26.6% higher repeats compared to the mean. So now you can sort of put in your filters, put in your dates with respect to events happening in the business, and start looking at relationships with AHT and repeat percentage extra. Let's pick another one. The chart below is, again, HT is the x-axis, how long is the call, and y-axis is the satisfaction, right? So, I mean, my understanding would be if the rep takes, if we can relax a little bit of the AHT and the rep takes as long as time it needs to solve the customer needs, the customer satisfaction should be high, right? But as you can see here, we see something where subtopic 6 is calls are 23% longer, but then satisfaction is 3% less than what the average should have been. So it's an area for us to investigate. And then we are always talking about red flags, but there are green flags as well, right? There must be right opposite to the quadrant. There's something that we're doing really well. The calls are shorter and the customers are super satisfied. So what are we doing? Like, what stuff are we doing there? Can we implement some of that kind of stuff for the alarming call subtopics? So just an example of how you can look at the state of the business at the executive summary level, and then you can try to establish relationships between the drivers to then get directionally start trying to implement projects to improve them, right? So we looked at something that consolidates into an executive summary, which is pretty strategic. But the next use case is a tactical one. So we wanted to look at millions of calls coming in. We have an average handle time to understand how long the calls are. We wanted to sort of look at how volatile it is compared to our thresholds. So what we have is an anomaly detection system where you have the call volume in the top left graph and the average handle time in the top right graph. What you see are the reference lines which establish the mean of the historical time trend. And we measure the volatility through the range of 1 standard deviation up from the mean, 1 standard deviation below from the mean. So once a data point gets generated when the dashboard gets updated, if it is above that particular threshold of the historical trend line, it would detect as an anomaly. And it would detect as a good anomaly a bad anomaly, when it goes above the standard deviation, and a good anomaly when it goes below one standard deviation of our thresholds. The bottom graphs show you the top 10 call reasons driving pressure for that particular week. So this is a weekly trend line that you're seeing. And what you can now look at is for that particular week where the anomaly is detected, you can see the top drivers that are causing the variance from our 8-week moving averages. Right? And so like we saw that graph in the Vision tooltip where certain subtopics have gone up, certain subtopics have gone down. So we also look at the top call drivers that are relieving pressure. So for that given week, if it's a good anomaly, bad anomaly, whatever it is, what are the top 10 drivers that's causing that? What are the top 10 drivers that's actually relieving pressure for us? Right? So this got a tremendous response in the business. And so we got a request to get further granular. So not only check the volatility levels on a weekly basis, but let's look at certain events like when the iPhone launches, right? Let's look at a daily level. So the next view is actually comparing every single day and how it has performed with respect to our baseline thresholds. One interesting thing is you can see the top 10 call reasons. And I know it's small stuff to read, but top 10 call reasons driving pressure for that given date by volume change from moving average of previous 8 Sundays, right? So just there's a data point which says, which is Sunday, so this updates day -1 every day. It's showing you the top call drivers for Sunday and the top drivers relieving pressure for Sunday, right? But using parameter actions in 2013. Now, I can historically go back and click on any data point, any anomaly that has happened historically, right? So for example, this is day Wednesday, percentage different from average of previous 8 Wednesdays is X%, and it is detected as a bad anomaly. I can now click on that data point on that graph, and you would see that reflects not only in the calculations of like rankings and filters to reflect on the drivers, but it also changes the labels in the dashboards. So it moved from previous 8 Sundays to previous 8 Wednesdays. So now we can have anomaly get detected for anything that happens in the future. We can have anomaly detected for like our entire historical call volume also, and try to analyze what's gone up, what's gone down, etc. Detecting an anomaly is is one part of the job, right? A crucial component is to convey that to the pertaining stakeholders, right? So in the detection system, we've built it in a way where not only it detects the anomaly, once it detects the anomaly, it shoots an anomaly email push. So this is an example of how an email you would get, where in the view, it highlights the anomaly. So you can see that red band that showcases which are some of the points that have gone up. And it tells you HTU is above or equal to threshold of X percentage difference from last 8 same days of week was above X%, etc. So this is a good way for everyone in the customer service analytics teams to sort of take a stock of how our call volume in HT is fluctuating on a daily, weekly basis. Okay, this is the part that I'm super excited to show you about, so, right? As Greg mentioned, Project Omicron. So, like the most, my favorite part of our Verizon credo, right, is these 2 lines. We don't wait for the future, we build it, right? And so the way we do that, the way we exemplify in our contact analytics team is through Wiz Labs, right? So Wiz Labs is a concept where Wiz Lab is a concept where we would build concept dashboards, essentially similar to like automobile companies building concept cars, right? So concept cars, they are real? Yes, they are. Are they drivable? Yes, they are. Are they in mass production? No. But they do push innovation and push the envelope forward. So that's the idea here. And there are 2 rules for Wiz Labs. One is, I would say 3 rules, okay? The first rule is it has to be an uncalled for project, right? And I use uncalled for in in a good sense here, where it's not a client request, it's not a report that you have to generate to satisfy someone higher in the chain of command. It has to be a project that's conceptualized, idealized by the team members. 2 is it should be an interesting problem to solve, and you should think fundamentally and through first principles to solve that problem. So even if certain things have been done before, you should still think on a first principle basis. And number 3 is, I'll get back to number 3 when I'll showcase some of the geospatial views that it pertains to that. So let me bring that in. So number 3 is that you have to glean something interesting from your day-to-day life. And so by that I mean you have to take inspiration from a non-work related environment, right? And so I encourage everyone in the team to build something, at least one uncalled for project in the year that's built by themselves, which they own. So for my uncalled for project is the project Omicron. And I'll start with sharing some inspirations that I gleaned from everyday life, which my past working environments in general. So this reminds me of my days of trading. So this is the opening bell on CNBC. So you can see the S&P 500 heat map, and in real time, it essentially shows you the market sentiment right when the bell rings, right? So stocks that have gone up, stocks that have gone down. It's a heat map to get a sense of, okay, how's the market going to, or at least has started to perform today, right? So I find that pretty cool. I used to follow the S&P 500 heat maps quite a lot. One other one, due to my currency trading days, what I want you to focus on is on the those area charts on the top right corner. So what these show you is actually a real-time visualization of demand and supply. So those red and green graphs that you see, those are that's the bid-ask spread, where you see the ask price and the bid price getting affected in real time, and it equilibrates, and the order gets placed, and the price is decided. And so you can view in some of the trading platforms in real time how a particular financial instrument is driving demand or supply. So that's something really exciting to me. There's a pretty cool show on Netflix, which is on a nuclear disaster that happened, and so in the nuclear plant, in the control room, you can see the graphite rods going up and down, and it's some anomalous behavior. And the way they visualize in the control room is through certain systems that they've built, right? So the core of the nuclear reactor is like an octagon, and each graphite rod is a square. So it's super interesting to think about it. Like, this is actually some spatial mapping happening here, right? So each square has a shape ID. Each point of the square has a point ID, and there's a path column that sort of maps the square to the octagon, which is the map, actually. I am deeply fond of geospatial mapping, and I follow certain ride-sharing data visualization projects from certain ride-sharing companies. And one of the best, really powerful visualization that I got to see was, the effect of separate trips versus carpooling. So this is real-time visualization of congestion, and you can see there's a significant difference between the heat maps on the street. So it's actually at the ride-sharing company, the chief economist was shown this visualization. It was an instrumental part for that company to start the carpooling process. So there are less cars on the road. It's good for the environment. Customers get cheaper rides. It's good for the drivers. Their rides are not wasted, and it's less expense for the company. So the data is there. The data is there in the company. You have to find a way to visualize and to tell that story, which actually affects decisions majorly in the direction of the company. Another view is basically hexagons on top of a geospatial map, which was interesting. So these are actually the number of cars and not the time congestion that's in the traffic. So that's pretty stark difference with separate trips and carpooling. And then some of the visualizations that we've done before, right? So geospatial mapping, we've done the like the heat maps, geospatial heat maps. So what this does is identify the pockets of zip codes where certain dispatches are high. And then you can click on certain states and you can filter on certain trouble types and really dive deep into certain pockets of zip codes which you won't find like in a tabular view. We've also done satellite maps. This is a Mapbox satellite map integrated in Tableau where it finds actual households that have generated dispatch. You can plug in the thresholds. It'll find you if a household has generated more than X number of dispatches. And you can click on that red dot to actually view the infrastructure on the ground. So this is Google Street View API integration within Tableau. That'll show you that. So when you think about geospatial mapping, I mean, when you think about spatial mapping, we usually think about it's like an outdoors geospatial mapping, right? But I mean, if you think about it, everything is coordinates. It's an X coordinate or a Y coordinate. I mean, if the matrix is real, the programmer has essentially in the schema, he has 3 columns, the X, the Y, and the Z coordinate. It's essentially geospatial mapping in a 3 dimension, basically. You would do that to animate. So what I was thinking is how cool it would be to take some of the outdoor geospatial techniques indoors and actually try to start viewing operational efficiency in our call centers on the floor. So that was something really interesting for me to work on the data for that. So if you see each pentagon pod is that is a shape, and so you can allocate a shape ID to that. Each point of that pentagon is a point. There's a point ID for that, and the way it moves in the progression, you would set a file path for it to complete a workstation. And so the idea here was it'll be awesome if the supervisors on the call center floor can get to see near real time some of the operational metrics that's happening in the call center. So consider like an event like phone launches, like outages, weather-related events. How is the AHT being performed in near real time for some of these pods that are there? So to give you a sense, bringing all the inspirations together, you see the supply and demand of calls in the left chart. So you see the calls received, and then you see the calls answered, right? That's the ask price and the bid price in the stock market that you just see. So calls received, the demand for customers for them to resolve their issues. Calls answered, the customer representatives that we are supplying for resolving the issues. Other metrics, average handle time, hold time, stock times, transfers, tickets open, tickets resolved. You could really visualize a heat map of the actual call center floor with respect to any metric. So if you would want to visualize something that's gone above a threshold, in near real time, you can see what that pod is. The supervisor can start thinking about how to start resolving that, right? And when you take it near real time, you're starting to solve optimization problems. So in the previous graphs that you saw, okay, we looked at historical time trends, we looked at something's gone up, okay, an anomaly is detected, but that's always like a week after or 1 day after, and we don't really have any chance to resolve for that. But if you have something like this, you can take actions. This is quite actionable if it gets implemented. So how would something like this look like when it's changing, right? So this is a sped up animation, but you could consider this like a time lapse of the entire day's activity, right? So on a minute by minute basis or on an hour by hour basis, you can see the calls coming in, you can see the calls getting answered from where they're getting answered. right? You can see the certain KPIs moving up or down. You would click on an individual pod to see how that rep has performed historically with respect to certain metrics, etc. Right? And to take this next level further, how cool it would be for anyone, of course, who has the permissions and who has the access and who is the right stakeholder, anyone from anywhere can view the call center floor of any call center anytime, right? This is like a data-driven ring or a canary for the enterprise business. And with that, let me hand it over to Greg. And before I hand it over to Greg, I just want to say something. So, and I truly mean when I'll say this is, I have the best job in the world, and I convey that to my team members every now and then. And they're like, I think about the reasons, and I think first we are in data science and analytics, right? So as custodians of data, we're closer to the truth than anyone else in the organization. That everyone has. Okay, all data engineers would have that, data scientists would have that, et cetera, right? What's special about data visualization, right? We are at the intersection of arts and science. So we get to use both sides of our brain. We get to involve, although we work with data, it's not a job that involves you to work with absolutes only. There's a lot of creativity that you can incorporate, and that's really cool for me. Number 3, because we are the front-end guys, we get to evangelize, we get to market, we get to pitch it, so we get all the exposure, right? So it's really amazing. And I really believe that being in the data visualization space is like the best spot to be in data science analytics. And data is the new oil, so more power to all the data guys who are involved there. So, but for like the engine behind this well-oiled machine is actually the data engineers, I would say, who kind of spend a lot of time curating, massaging, and structuring the data right way for these visualizations, these front-end tools to function. So we have, I think we have Michael Arnold and his team in the house. We have Michael Brazil. So we'd like to give a big round of applause for all the data engineers and Mike Arnold and Mike Brazil.
That's good.
With that, let me hand it over to Greg to wrap it up.
Yep, so just to bring us home here in the last couple minutes. So just some lessons learned. We learn every single day. If I look back 3 years ago, 6 years ago, we just get better all the time, which is awesome to see. One big one for us is quality over quantity, specifically for speech analytics. We don't just try and just push out call drivers all the time. It's really about get the right ones, ensure they're as accurate as possible, because that's really what matters. We want all the information we're giving our stakeholders to be just completely accurate rather than just tons of quantity that doesn't mean anything. The second one, I call it ignore the haters. I think a lot of people call this something different. The point I want to make here is don't let insights be ignored. As data engineers, as Tableau experts, as analytics professionals in general, your job is to improve your business, right? Your job is to find that opportunity that someone else did not notice yet and push it on your stakeholders. And you might hurt someone's feelings. You might have an insight that says a business, some sort of part of the business or project is not going well. You need to push those insights, make sure you're heard and those are taken action on so you can improve the business, because that's really what it's all about. The next one's anticipate the next 3 questions. So we know when we build a dashboard, we can kind of predict at this point based on who's asking, what department they're in, who they report into, what's going to come next. So it's better just to get with your team, get together, say, all right, this is the request. We know they actually want this because we're the data people. Let's deliver it on the first go so we don't have to go back and do it afterwards. The 4th one is involve the business. This is something that I had a hard time with personally. I thought I was the data scientist who could do everything myself. I absolutely could not, right? I rely on my partners heavily now, right? My business transformation groups, just the field, all the business groups, because they know the business better than me. And also when I partner with them beforehand, the success of our projects and the implementation and the chances of them getting acted on are significantly higher. So I would say always involve the business from the very beginning to ensure good partnership. The 5th one, know your audience. Whether it's for an executive or it's for your working team level, cater to that person. Everyone needs to see data differently, and if all it's going to take is you manipulating a Tableau dashboard just by making a chart into a table or vice versa, take care of it. It's going to impress everyone. Honestly, they're going to think it takes longer than it does, because a lot of us who build Tableau dashboards know it's not that hard to actually just switch those things, right? So just do that proactively. And then a buzzword, democratize data, right? It's super important. As Sid showed you, we have those 50 dashboards for call drivers. Do we think we need all of them? No, but there are people using them all the time, and we're putting metadata in their hands so they can make decisions, right? We're satisfying everyone. So we have that executive summary for whoever needs it, but we also have the metadata for who needs that. So we're making sure we're satisfying everyone, having dashboards for different roles in the business. So with that, thank you all for coming to our session. Thank you to Mario in the back, our tech guy, who's been fantastic, and we really appreciate your time. And if you did enjoy the content, we do ask if you could rate us in the app. That would be awesome. And thanks all for joining. And if any questions, just come up afterwards.